Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Temkin Group webinar on the CX Institute. As you can see from the title, this is Bruce Temkin. I am the CX Transformist and Managing Partner of Temkin Group. Unfortunately, Laura Wells, who's the CX Institute Program Director, was not feeling so well today, fighting off the flu, but I think she is listening, and she is here certainly in spirit with us. And we're very excited to be talking about the CX Institute and providing you an overview with the work that we've been doing over the last year and a half to put together what we believe is a unique offering to help organizations drive the change they need to become more customer-centric. Now, during this presentation, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. I think on the top of your screen, or for some of you, it might be somewhere else, you see a place to ask questions. We'll get to those questions at the end of the presentation. There'll be plenty of time. Hopefully, we'll be able to get to most, if not all of those. So if you have a question, go ahead and submit it via that form, and like I said, at the end, we'll get to them. So without further ado, let me talk to you about the CX Institute. And really start with an understanding of what the heck is it. The CX Institute provides online training to develop the mindset, motivation, and momentum for employees to become customer-centric. So many of you who have worked with Temkin Group in the past, you'll know that a lot of our work is in helping customer experience professionals and executives drive change from their perspective. This is a different offering. The CX Institute is really not targeted at the few people who are trying to drive change in the organization. It's really focused on the entire organization, hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of employees across an organization who need to have the mindset that customers are important and the mindset that they play a critical role in delivering on the experience of customers. They have to have the motivation to want to make changes, and they have to have momentum and understanding of where to head and how to head there so that they can be part of a change in an organization that's becoming more customer-centric. So really, this is training that's meant for entire organizations. So as we say there, they'll have the mindset, the motivation, and the momentum for their organizations to become more customer-centric. Now, I'm going to explain to you sort of the why, what, and how of what we're doing. The why. Why do we have the CX Institute? Why are we offering this online training? The reason is that CX transformation efforts are often impeded by a workforce that's resistant to change, meaning with the clients that we work with, we worked with dozens and dozens of large companies, and many of them have been successful at being able to make some changes in the organization, but as they evolve, they are not able to get all of the changes they want because employees tend to not go along with all the changes they're doing. So as your need to become more customer-centric, as you evolve, organizations have to not only focus on what they're doing sort of like from a customer experience standpoint, they have to really think about how all of their employees think and act. So driving change to become customer-centric requires change for almost every employee in your organization. So what is the CX Institute? CX Institute offers online training that provides employees from first-line supervisors to executives with the skills, knowledge, and mindset they need for their organization to become customer-centric. So we talk about from first-line supervisors to executives because we recognize that the training we have may not be appropriate for all first-line employees or hourly employees. It might be appropriate for some, but it's really focused on the professional members of the organization, those that can recognize their role in a bigger context, and those that either directly lead or influence others across the organization. And we'll talk about how some of our modules fit into different levels of the organization. But pretty much, you can think about it from everyone from first-line supervisor all the way up to the CEO or any individual contributors that are focused on sort of more enterprise-wide activities. A lot of people in the organization. So that's the why and the what. Let's talk about the how. We've created highly interactive training based on Temkin Group's experience with training large organizations. So over the years, we've run many workshops. Some are open enrollment where lots of different companies come. Some are specific on-site for an individual company. And we've run so many workshops that we've been able to figure out what type of information, what type of interactivity, what type of reflective exercises actually help the learners learn. So we've captured what we know about how organizations learn and individuals learn about being customer-centric, and then we worked with an online educational design company that helps organizations create good customer experience. And so that's what we've done. We've put those together, and what you'll see is a significantly unique offering in terms of combining training design with leading-edge content. So we're extremely excited, and I want to share with you now some of what we think are the unique advantages to the CX Institute training. First of all, we have a proven approach. As I mentioned, it's adapted from several years of us doing in-person training, and it's based on our work with hundreds and hundreds of companies, our work and research with hundreds and hundreds of companies. It uses leading-edge e-learning design. We get our learners to understand and apply concepts through interactive exercises, so it's not just a bunch of information being thrown at our learners. They actually engage in the learning. We reinforce what they learn by testing their knowledge throughout the module. So we'll have places where we'll ask them questions about what they've learned, and then in the end, we'll actually take them through a quiz, all focused on and designed around making sure that they are learning and absorbing the information. And then we push learners to reflect about their individual roles, because we're not trying to teach conceptual information about being customer-centric. We're trying to get individuals to understand that they play a role and get them to reflect about what their individual role is in driving the organization to be more customer-centric. And then we've built it to drive change. So all of our lessons are focused on behavior change, really getting the learner to think. Whenever we introduce a concept, we translate it at some point into them thinking about what are the behaviors that they do that they can make a change on that will actually help the organization. So it's really focused not just on, this isn't a training for the sake of teaching people things or training for the sake of getting people to learn things. This is training to get people to actually change how they behave. And we recognize that organizations can't drive change just with online training, right? It takes more than that. But one of the things that we found is critical for our online training or any training to succeed is making sure that managers are on board. So we actually have a manager's guide that's set up so that anyone who has employees who are going through the training, they can understand what they need to do to reinforce the training. And I'll talk a little bit about what we have for managers a little bit deeper into the presentation. And it's 100% online and scalable. Well, that comes with the e-learning. So any employee with internet access can be trained. You can reach hundreds or thousands of employees globally. And we've been working with many large companies where they have us do workshop after workshop after workshop with different groups within their company. Now, that turns out that that's difficult to really promulgate across the organization. First of all, it's very expensive, but second of all, you can't reach people, large numbers of people or remote people, with doing in-person workshops very effectively. So this gives us the opportunity to not only have, a proven approach and leading-edge e-learning and a drive for change, but it gives us an ability to actually have these lessons available throughout an organization. And so I think that really sort of provides, hopefully provides you with an understanding of why we're so excited about this training and what we think it will do to help organizations become more customer-centric. Now, I mentioned that we have our training is focused from frontline supervisors to executives, and we have two different initial modules. So CX Institute is working on additional training. I won't go into that in this presentation, but I'll talk about the two modules we have. One of them is called Customer Experience Foundations, and that is really focused on first-line supervisors through executives. I would say that is really the broadest training we have, which is great for having large amounts of employees start to understand what customer experience is all about and recognize that they, as individuals, play a role in it. At the other side, on the right, you see us describing another module called Creating a Customer-centric Culture. That's really focused on leaders in the organization so that they understand the competencies it takes to drive change in an organization. Because, when we work with companies, oftentimes there are customer experience leaders and customer experience team, and they understand. But if the leaders across the organization don't understand what it takes to become customer-centric, what the culture needs to look like, what the elements of a customer-centric organization, then they can't participate in driving that change. So I'm going to give you a little bit more information on both of these modules. The first one I'll talk about is our Customer Experience Foundations, and there you see a little bit of that is actually the homepage of the training. And what we're teaching here is that customer experience is everyone's business. Anyone who goes through this will understand not only that customer experience is important to their organization, but they'll recognize that they as individuals, as well as every other employee, has a responsibility in making the customer experience come to life. The course is designed to engage all levels of leaders, from frontline supervisors to the executive team. It reinforces the importance of customer experience to the organization. We actually have some questions where they have to think about what customer experience means to their organization. It explains how CX is a part of everyone's role, and it helps them identify the actions that they can personally take to improve customer experience. Now, the key concept that's taught in this module are the 6 laws of customer experience. And those of you who know Temkin Group, you might have read about the 6 laws. We make them widely available. There's a free ebook. And so it's a very popular, I think the 6 laws of customer experience may be the most popular content ever written about customer experience, been downloaded tens of thousands of times. And what we recognize is, though, even though you can get access to that content, we make it widely available for free, that when it's presented in the course in an interactive manner with these exercises and scenarios, that it is a dramatically impactful learning experience for just about everyone across your organization. Second module we have available is called Creating a Customer-centric Culture. And here, the big point we're trying to get across is that customer experience is a reflection of your organization's culture. So that any leader across the organization may be thinking, well, I know we want to improve customer experience, but that's the work that the customer experience team is doing. And we oftentimes have to teach leaders, no, it's not. The customer experience team may help the organization think and do some things differently, but ultimately the customer experience you deliver is a reflection of the culture and what everyone in your organization, so every leader in the organization needs to think about what their team, what their organization is doing, and how they as leaders contribute to the overall experience that the customer is getting, because they are an important factor in the overall culture. So the courses are designed to engage leaders from middle manager to CEO, explain why and how CX has been to be integrated into the operating fabric of an organization, everything that they need to do. It helps learners identify actions that they can take personally as leaders, to create a more customer-centric organization. The key concept here are the 4 CX core competencies. Once again, this is popular Temkin Group content, a lot of it available for free, but once again, the ability to put it into training where we have scenarios and reflections and people have to answer questions and think about deeply about the content makes it a powerful tool to help leaders understand what they can do and how they can drive change across the organization and making it more customer-centric. All right, so those are the 2 modules. Now, the modules, all of our online training share some common aspects. We use real-world scenarios, interactive exercises, and action orientation. And I'll give you some examples of those things in bits, but you have to think about when you want to have good learning, especially if you're going to have learning that's going to go e-learning that's going to cross, large numbers of your employees. It can't be just a talking head. We could have recorded this webinar and given it to you as training materials. But we recognize that anyone who is just doing that, who is just sort of listening to a talking head or some slides, is not going to learn because they're not really engaging with the materials. So we have real-world scenarios. We present scenarios, and we have the learner think about them. We have the learner answer questions about them. We have the learner apply the things they've learned to those scenarios, so that's kind of cool. The interactive exercises happen throughout the modules. Sometimes we're having people reflect on something they've learned, and then at the end of the modules we have a quiz to really reinforce all of the materials they've heard. So we have this constant flow of them being taught something, thinking about a scenario, applying what they learned, answering questions, and so they're engaged in the actual learning process. And finally, the action orientation, besides the fact that we have, the things that we have them learning and really engaging with are having them really consider their personal role, their personal efforts, their personal actions. We also have this ability, we've created this capability where at the end of major sections, we have the learner reflect on changes they could make. We have them actually capture those changes in those moments, and at the end of the module, they can print out, or they can save, or they can email all of the things they were thinking throughout the training. So it really is focused on trying to make sure that everyone who takes the training really has sort of the mindset of applying what they learn. So for real-world scenarios, we have some fun with these. There are some scenarios that are somewhat cartoon-like. We have a number of whiteboard videos that have scenarios. So this is one scenario. If you were to take our CX Foundations training, you'd see a scenario about a woman who unfortunately gets into an accident with her minivan, and we explore the experience she has with both her insurance company and then with the auto repair service that she has to go with to get her car fixed. So that's sort of the example of scenarios we use. Interactive exercises, you see here a couple of the interactive exercises. We have all different types. On the left-hand side, you see an exercise where you have to match our 4 competencies: purposeful leadership, compelling brand values, employee engagement, and customer connectedness, with the right definition for it. So simply making sure you had to have listened so that you understand where those fit. On the right-hand side, you see another type of an interactive exercise where we, after showing a scenario, we ask the learner to think about the scenario and answer a question. So in here, it's select all that apply to the situation we're talking about. So that gives you hopefully a flavor for when we're talking about interactive exercises, what we mean. Now, the action orientation, I mentioned this. This is the one of the forms. There are several across both of the e-learning modules where we ask the employee, in this case after we've shown them law number 5, employees do what is measured, incented, and celebrated. We ask them, in light of law number 5, what do you think that you or your organization could be doing differently? And type your text here. So we give them an opportunity to think about what they might do to improve at that moment. They just learned something, capture what they're thinking, and then in the end let them, as I mentioned, print it out, email it, or save it for later. Cool. So that's why we hopefully you're as excited as we are about the power of the training itself to be able to provide learners with the mindset, the motivation, and the momentum to change their behaviors to help the organization become more customer-centric. But as I mentioned before, training alone is not enough to drive change. One of the things that we believe that's fundamental to what we're doing is that the actions of managers determine the impact and sustainability of training. So if you think about it, e-learning is necessary but not sufficient to drive change. In other words, we can do all we want to get employees to be thinking the right way, to be motivated to do things, and really to be ready to start moving in a new direction. But if their managers aren't on board, if their managers aren't a part of the process, if their managers aren't sort of included in the overall framework of driving change, then the learning itself will not be as powerful as it should be. So what we've done is really thought about how can we help managers reinforce change, right? So not only do we have training, but we have tools that help managers reinforce training. One of the things we have is a short whiteboard video. And the whiteboard video is very good to help managers understand what their role is. We introduce a model we call TRAIN, which is that managers are important to translate the learnings into what's applicable for their people, review the learnings after their employees take the training so that they actually can start to talk about it and understand what it means in the context of their business, act on it, get their employees to act on what they learn, involve, right, for them to get involved in the change that's going on. And finally, nourish. We want to make sure that our managers are rewarding and incentivizing and giving kudos to employees that are applying the learning in new ways in their organization. So we teach them that they, as managers, have a role, and their role is defined by this TRAIN model. Then we also teach them, the second thing we teach them is that managers have to be involved throughout the life cycle of training. So we not only explain that to them, but we show them what they need to be doing before training, right after training, 4 to 6 weeks after their training, and then ongoing, recognizing that there are phases of the learning that happen before and after the learner goes through the online module that are critical for that learning to actually take hold. So we have the whiteboard video, which helps the manager understand his or her role. And then we also have, for each of our modules, we have a reinforcement manual and reinforcement guides. And what these manuals help managers do is they help reinforce their role across every stage. So we identified those stages, and in these guides, we go stage by stage and tell the managers what they should be thinking about, what they should try to do with their employees, and we provide them with tools and ideas to use when interacting both with individual employees and with their entire team as groups. So we have some things which are email templates you can send to your employees. We have guides for discussions you can do with your entire team. And at the end, we also summarize key lessons from the training. So in this document, if a manager was interested in what was being taught in a training module, it's also included in here because we have because we have all of the highlights of what's learning. Obviously, we would, our very strong guidance is that step one in being a manager that supports training is a manager that takes the training. So we definitely highly recommend that every manager should be taking the training that their employees are seeing. That helps them do a much better job at reinforcing that training. So those are the things that we do. So we, so far I've told you about sort of this online interactive training that provides the mindset, motivation, and momentum for employees to move forward and become more customer-centric. I've talked about the fact that we've augmented the training with tools and training for managers so they can do an effective job at reinforcing that change. And then really when you think about it, sometimes organizations need more support than that. And I want to show you a picture of how Temkin Group, both Temkin Group's offerings and the CX Institute, combine to give you a wide breadth of services. So what we've done here is, across the top here, we've identified sort of four different audiences. One audience is the CX core team, so an organization that has a customer experience team, that would be there. Then there's usually a CX extended team. This might be the group of employees that are working on customer experience efforts across the organization, but it's not their full-time job. Those might be, you might call them CX ambassadors, voice of the customer ambassadors. They might be a working team, but there are a bunch of people across the organization who are involved in customer experience efforts, but it's not their full-time gig. Then there are executives, right, senior leaders who are driving change across the organization, and then managers and supervisors, people running small teams, small groups across the enterprise. And then on the left-hand side, you see a series of our offerings. We have research and advisory groups, subscriptions from Temkin Group, consulting from Temkin Group, speeches, in-person workshops. And then at the bottom, we highlight the CX Institute's online training. Now, I'm not going to spend a ton of time going over the details of this because this is really this presentation is really to get you have a sense of what the CX Institute can do. And you see here, the CX Institute provides the motivation, mindset, and momentum to participate and lead customer experience transformation, mostly focused at the CX extended team, executives, and managers and supervisors. It's not really meant to be the training ground for CX core team. I think it can be valuable to the CX core team, but I think this helps you sort of understand where Temkin Group's services are focused versus where the CX Institute's online training is focused. But obviously, the collection of our offerings, the collection of our services can be really helpful for any organization that's trying to become more customer-centric. All right. So hopefully you have the big picture. Now I want to go into sort of, if you're interested in the CX Institute and our online training offerings, how do you actually purchase them? How do you actually consume them? And we have, I've identified 3 ways here. 2 of them are corporate training, which means, by corporate training we mean an organization buys multiple licenses for employees across their organization. So you can buy licenses starting at 100 employees, and you can buy licenses up to tens of thousands of employees. And so the corporate model is when an organization is buying multiple licenses for employees across their organization. The individual model is when a person is buying the training for themselves. So let me start over the right with the individual training. So you can actually go to the CX Institute website today, purchase the training, and get immediate access to that online training from the website. So, go there, put a credit card, sign up, and you can start the training immediately. That's available. On the right-hand side with the corporate training, we have two models, company-hosted and CX Institute-hosted. For the company-hosted, that's where the e-learning modules can be accessed alongside your other training module in a company's corporate learning management system. What we found is lots of our clients, large organizations, tend to have a learning management system. And so they like to take our training, put it onto their platform, and make it available the same way they make available all other training in their organization. It's one more module alongside other modules. Now, they can, in that mode, they can still make it mandatory for everyone. They can make it optional for everyone. They can do whatever they want to do in terms of the training, but this allows them to actually integrate it with however they do all of their other online training in their organizations. The second is CX Institute hosted. So we have a learning management system. We've built on an open platform learning management system, so we can configure and host learning journeys. And if we host it, then we can combine the learning modules with other relevant content. You know, if you wanted to add a video from your CEO or a link to your intranet site, we can add that if we're hosting it. So lots of opportunities for different ways for companies to deploy the CX Institute e-learning, and pretty much those two, I think, fit for just about everyone. And like I said, in both of those cases, the dominant payment model is it's priced by the number of employees that you are signing up for the training. So you can go to our site, or we'll have some follow-up information where you can see the pricing. But I wanted to give you a sense of what the options were for deploying our training. So this is the last slide. We'll get to, remember, if you had any questions, I hope you were putting them in. We'll get to your questions in a second. But after this webinar, if you want more information, you should visit our website, which is cxinstitute.com, where you can learn more about the CX Institute. You'll see the details of our e-learning modules, and you can purchase access to individual training there. If you want more information, drop us an email at info@cxinstitute.com, where you can request information about our corporate offerings or ask questions that we didn't answer on the website. Since you're on the website, we will send a link to all of the attendees that has a recording of this website, along with other resources that we think will be valuable if you're considering the modules. So let's get to the questions. And the first question someone asked was, how long do the modules take? So our modules have been targeted to take around 30 to 40 minutes. To be honest with you, this is an interesting finding. Our modules were a little bit longer when we first deployed them. We were targeting at an hour, and we found that many of our clients wanted to be a little shorter, so we tightened up on some of them. So I'd say they're about 40 minutes. But if you think that's a little bit too long, it's not a problem, because the modules can be stopped and started. They don't have to be completed in one sitting. So a learner can actually start the learning at any point, come back, and take it up. But the overall training is probably in the range of 40 minutes time. Any other questions that you have? Okay. Oftentimes what happens in these webinars, we have lots of attendees, but people are shy. But remember, if you come up with questions, either go to the site, drop us an email at info@cxinstitute.com, and like I mentioned, we will follow up with you with an email with additional information and with answers to questions you might have. Oh, we had one last question that came in, which is, what's the best option for a company under 100 employees? And I would say that we'd have to look at that individually, because if you're probably, if you have, dozens or more, you're probably still appropriate to buy the 100 or less. And then the other question is less than 10 people. drop us an email. I think for less than 10 people, it might be useful just to buy a package of individual training, which we can configure for you. So hopefully you got most of your questions answered, and the ones that you have we'll answer in follow-up, or you feel comfortable enough to drop us a line. But I want to reiterate that we are very excited about this offering, and Laura Wells, who is the CX Institute Program Director, who would have been on this webinar, will likely be the one following up with you if you have any questions. So it's good for you to know her name. But we are really excited because based on our work, we think that the CX Institute fills a very critical gap by providing employees with the motivation, mindset, and momentum to become customer-centric. And that's really what our collective goals are, to help you drive your organizations to be more customer-centric. So I hope that you look into the CX Institute, and I hope that if it fits your needs, you'll reach out and we'll find a way to help you. So once again, thank you, and I look forward to working with you in the future.